Okay, so you mentioned in a workshop last week that the word on the street is you had one of the best interviews at Tesla of all time. So do you want to explain more about what that interview was like?
I'm glad we were able to set this recording up because, yes, I was told by my interviewer I was the best interview they'd ever had. And many people ask, well, how do I even get in Tesla? So I'd like to share my experience to see if it helps anybody else. So do please post this far and wide. I do think it's worth everyone's time to spend as much time as they can in a Musk company. I think that's actually the best education currently available, especially for business. So yeah, if someone's on the fence of getting an executive MBA or going back to school for anything or starting a major, I would say no, go work at a Musk company. So that's why I think this conversation might help some people. How interviewing at Tesla worked in my case is anyone in the company says, I think we'd be able to more efficiently use money if we had someone like X. And this is already a little different because most companies budget and they say, here's how many employees we can afford in this year. Tesla doesn't do that, or any of the Musk companies, as far as I can tell. They instead say, here's how much money we have. How quickly can we efficiently spend it? So it's spend as fast as you efficiently can. And the efficiency word is key. That's what replaces budgeting and still makes it responsible. So someone might say, we could get 2 more robots here, and that would be a very efficient use of funds. And if we got 3 more people that could do something like this, that would be a very efficient use of funds. So someone proposes that, and they write their name on the proposal. They can already put it on LinkedIn. They don't have to wait on anybody, is how it appeared to work when I was brought in. They just post it themselves, but their name is on it. So they are sponsoring you, but it's not like your salary comes out of their salary or anything. There's at least traceability who asked for this. Then they take the calls. So in this case, there were actually several positions and people that thought they needed people to work primarily in Sparks, Nevada for designing and deploying and manufacturing battery cells. And then where I did go, primarily the mothership, which is what we call the Fremont, California plant, someone said, we need somebody like what ended up being me. So I respond to the LinkedIn ad and I respond on careers.tesla.com, and they call me back then. So the person who put their name on it contacts you. Yes, human resources is there as a service, but they're not the blocking person. So already this may help people. You're going to very likely, or at least I did, talk to the person who thought they needed someone. So step one, if they call you, ask, what do you really need? Like, I read what you need and I think I understand it. Let's make sure I really understand it, because that is what they want. They have these specific problems to solve, and they don't hire by position. They might put a title on something like vice president of supply chain to try to fish for who they think they need, but they don't hire for position, and that won't be your title in the company. It's almost titleless. Instead, they have these problems to solve. So all they're going to want to ask you is, have you solved problems like this before? And how did it go? Did you do a good job? Like, or was it like, are you going to efficiently solve these problems? That's the only thing they want to know. And the best way to answer that in an interview, as far as I can tell, for Musk Company, is to show the most similar way you already solved this problem. So if they want you to be designing rocket engines at SpaceX, they don't want you to say, I went to aerospace program X at Y university. They really don't care. Instead, they don't care where you went to school at all, or if you went to school. They want you to say, I've made 3 hobby rocket engines. 2 of them never really worked, but they're on YouTube and you can see sparks fly out. And here's why I think they didn't work. The 3rd one kind of worked for a little while, and here's what I learned. They can say, okay, with some mentoring and coaching, this person already knows a lot of the sweat and build up technology is required to solve this problem, which is the only reason I'm talking to them on the phone. And they want that call to be as fast as possible. Because they've got stuff that they're really passionate about. So in how few minutes can you say, look, I'm a low risk, efficient way to solve this problem? And project-based learning is key. Then I believe what I was able to communicate, why they said you are the best interview we've ever had, is I said I started an automotive company in 2006. As the owner, I had to do our purchasing originally, and I stayed involved with that forever onward. I set our procurement policy, if you can even call it that. I took accountability for procurement. In the beginning, I had to do all the CAD and CAM, and I had to set up our CAD CAM licenses and troubleshoot those installs and do the CAD and CAM. And then I would pair with people as people joined. Eventually we got 4,000 people, and I would pair with them remote, online, or in person, as we would do 3D assemblies, purchase stuff to do them, set up machines to do them, mill machines to use them. And so I ran, in effect, a machine shop and a prototyping shop and a test lab and everything you need to do to run a small car company, which is kind of a miniature Tesla. And they said, that's what we need. You have solved all of the problems we want, at least in your company. You have already solved these problems and understand the upstream and downstream of the problems that we need to be solved. Then they capped the interview every time. I actually talked to a few different people, every time with, what's your stance on safety? What would you do if someone is doing something unsafe and you saw it? That was the only other topic I remember, other than here's the problem to solve, and okay, convince me that you are super safe and that you will help other people be super safe. That is the entirety and the experience. But what I'd like to know, Stephanie, from your perspective, is what's missing? Because to me, it seems like the whole picture, right? But from you, sitting in Canada, and I hope about to work in many Musk companies, what appears to be missing for you to feel super confident having an awesome interviewing experience in Tesla?
Yeah, I think I think the focus in our culture is really to build up a strong educational background. And even as I've gone into my first job, I've seen how little transfers into industry. So I think it's that wondering how to best build up experience, so that when I'm in an interview like this, I can lean on this background that shows that I can solve the problems that I'll be facing in industry.
I've got an answer. I don't know if it'll help everybody, but maybe. I used to run my own little car company, and it still runs. Maybe it can never really die because it's this open source Wikipedia model thing. So it keeps going, but it's not nearly as fast and large as it was when it was my full-time endeavor and I actually put money into it. But in any case, that is what let me run into these similar problems and have to solve them. So joining as a hobby, the most similar thing you can, is probably good anyway, because then you know if you actually love it. Because if you don't love it, you'll probably not continue to love it, right? So if you're particularly interested in the machine learning stack, joining or founding a machine learning club, or taking a machine learning class and creating a study group for it, where you actually take problems off some of the online education sites as well to augment the class. I mean, one, you'd totally rock the class then, but you would have turned it into a hobby, and maybe you're running it or maybe you're joining it, but that will let you find the problems that now exist and continue to re-exist as Tesla iterates, right? They hit the problems again. They need more people that know how to attack those problems. So it would be that, like in the Musk companies, what do you dream you were doing? Create that or join that as a hobby for as many hours as you can. And it's not really time, it's more about the amount you cover. So going fast is better than taking a long time. But the reason I'll say time is Tesla is super exhausting in the most fun way. And if you're able to allocate 2 hours a week or even 10 hours a week to whatever that hobby is to build up skill, yeah, try to go fast in those 2 hours or 10 hours, which is more important than the time. But that also allows anyone, I think, to train to be high energy consistently over time for 2 hours a week or 10 hours a week on top of everything else you've got going on, which I will say is super helpful
Mm.
when you then join, is to have the durability.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's something I wanted to touch on as well, is it seems like um there is a very strong kind of burnout culture, or a very high turnaround at companies like Tesla, and a lot of very competitive tech companies. So do you think the value is really in staying for a short period of time just to get experience with working in a really high energy environment? Or is it really about um, going to this company and trying to build up endurance so that you can stay for a longer amount of time, if that makes sense?
It totally does. And I haven't heard people speak about this well. So if we're able to get views on this video, people might love what you just talked about. Um, Staying for 90 days plus is polite. One reason it's polite is because whoever put their name on hiring you in the Musk companies then gets either a bonus or not a penalty, or I mean, it's good.
Mm.
They got someone for at least 90 days. That's polite. Um, Otherwise, even being in there 10 minutes is such a useful radical education, in my opinion. And more is simply better. So I wouldn't worry about that. More is simply more. But it's so clear immediately. Then the cause of burnout didn't seem to be that it was actually so crazy intense. How do you explain that really the right way? It was more like, when I joined, there was a group of people that joined at the same time as me, just like every wave, because they're able to onboard people in these 4-hour onboarding parties, kind of, which are really good. And so you join, and a group joins on that date, whatever it is they're going to initially do. And so you have seen those people and you can recognize them around, even with the masks and the safety gear on or whatever. I was there right at the start of COVID, so they're all geared up. You could recognize people. And I remember the first long weekend we had. You can always choose to work more days and take overtime because there's always stuff to do. But typically you have 3 days on, 4 days off, then 4 days on, 3 days off. And the first maybe 2 weeks, everyone has their best foot forward. Everyone is, your energy reserves can carry you, even if your lifestyle's not awesome yet, I think, is what I thought I observed. Everyone still looked cheerful, everyone. And then I think it was the third week, it was the 4-day weekend, the day back. You could see who still, I'll guess, I mean, total guess, who still likes to have late night backyard barbecues, pass out drunk with their friends, which totally good, but not the night before work. And you could see who those people were, and they crashed because it is intense enough that if you're not well hydrated, well slept, you're going to be miserable, super miserable. You could think about it like actually exercise, like an endurance exercise. And it's not crazy brutal. If you're in moderate health, it's really no problem. But if you're hungover and didn't sleep almost at all, it's going to be awful. And you could see people that, like, some people just straight up sat down, like they were probably dehydrated. And so it's okay, have some water, I get it. But the thing is, it wasn't temporary, like they were fully depleted. So they were out all the 12-hour shift. I mean, they were a liability. Other people had to like make sure they're safe. So of course they were asked to, what can we do to help you? Or can we help you find another job? Because we need you to be a net value add. So I'd say that if you think about it, like you're going to go do an endurance exercise, and this is true for whatever we'd call mental work, but it's a noisy, busy environment. And whether you're working on a laptop or whatever you're doing, you'd need to be hydrated and rested and have medium level fitness, uh, or you're going to crash. And I saw a very similar thing in martial arts. There was the style I was in, there was white belt and then yellow belt and then blue belt. And you had this mass fail off when people reached blue belt, because it was past the like prepared for you easy wins that were still challenging and you're still improving your body and your performance, but like, you know, it's your cadence of easier wins. It's now, okay, this is actually going to be life transformative training, but you would need to transform your life. And you'd see the people who are like, yeah, but I like to binge watch Netflix all night and then go to work without sleeping. You're going to fail out. You're going to crash and burn. So I don't think it's that crazy intense, but you need to have a moderately sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense for people who already have really great habits and are tracking towards, you know, very high performing careers. But I wonder if you have any advice for people who kind of maybe want that, but you know, they want to be here, but they're kind of here. like what is
like everybody. I
yeah.
mean, just be kind.
Yeah.
For me, I use something called personal agility, and it works well for me. I mean, not that I've hit every life goal I've ever had, but it's helped. And part of it's the background behind me. I use it when I teach online classes. You have this thing called your product backlog, and that's your like wish list. Like, I wish I had this type of health. I wish I had this type of study habit. These wishes that you think would be good. If you maintained those or achieved those, they'd be good. I wish I graduated from X or whatever. Then the sprint backlog is what's the absolute few things you're going to do in this increment of time. And for me, that's today. Like it's got to be brief. So I've got a card in the backlog every day. That's gym. And that's the first thing I do, because if I don't, something will get in the way, right? And then the next one is study Japanese for me right now, and teeth whitening. So I put the teeth whitening kit on and I study Japanese on an app, and that's the second thing every day. And then I have whatever's most important that day. Like right now it's getting to tax season, so file a profit and loss for this thing. That replaces my need for other habits, and it's not that much different than a to-do list. But for people that need a little bit more or benefit from an online coach, which I have used, there is a whole system, personal agility, and there's a whole book. And there's other systems too that are very similar. Getting things done is not that different. Personal Kanban, very similar. I happen to use personal agility. I did use personal Kanban before. Not that different. But having this prioritized to-do list and prioritized by how easy is it to say not today? So the thing that's easy to say yes to, but is important, like I don't know, have loving time with your relationship. Maybe that's easy to do. It's natural to do when you're tired, maybe. Well, then that can be towards the end when you've already had decision fatigue. It's super important, but let's make that the evening wind down plan, maybe, right? Or a little bit in the morning. Let's have coffee together or whatever your deal is. Let's go for a run together. But the thing that's easy to say no to, like it's raining, I don't want to go to the gym. That's first when you have high energy. and personal agility helps, and as does getting things done in personal Kanban, helps communicate these ancillary practices. And they even have online coaches that will check in with you in nurturing ways. And if you want, I did try that and it worked well for me. I used a lady, well, used is the wrong word, collaborated with a lady named Maria Mattarelli out of Florida, and it was super fun. So I'll say that they're agile frameworks for filling in for all of our human pluses and minuses, so that overall we're a pretty excellent human being.
I love the commitment to agile, to even use it for your personal tasks. That's true commitment.
Agile got me 6-pack abs. I'll say that. Internet agile got me a raging 6-pack. Congratulations, Agile.
So I want to take it back a little bit. So you've mentioned a couple times that kind of the best education out there is working for a Musk company. What do you think, if you could distill it into a few things, like what is it about a Musk company that provides such a high quality education that traditional education doesn't?
uh, for me, there's all the information that I don't know how to name.
Mm,
There's a tremendous amount of being there and seeing a, a holistic process that's working super well. And it's even scaling. Like Musk does not have to be next to you for you to scale this method. It's embedded in the culture, at least right now, and it currently spreads as new plants arise. They still have the same absolute amazing effectiveness. So currently it's working. And being there, you sense or hear or whatever it is, all these things I don't even know how to name. And I run into those because I do now try to teach this. I do now try to teach whatever this thing is that is agile, the agile at Musk companies. And the questions I get back show me how much I don't have words for. They're like, well, what about X? And X would have no sense. It would not apply at all. But I thought I just explained it perfectly. I really thought I did. I think you need to, well, one good way to learn very quickly is simply to be there. And even better to set up any of the agile lines there, which is happening all the time. So if you're there, you will be involved in that in very short order. So when you set something up, you see the pieces that are missing. I imagine it's like if you wrote down the rules of how to play ice hockey and you mailed them to someone who'd never seen ice hockey and asked them to try to create the game and then visited them 5 years later, what would have emerged? I think it's that kind of a problem. Whereas if you watch an ice hockey game, you'd see something. If you actually played a full season, you'd see something else. Whereas if you came early, drove the Zamboni, played a season, stayed late, picked up under the stands, and then attended at least a game a week when you weren't playing, you'd really get it. And it's the stuff I don't know how to say. And maybe it didn't even strike me as necessary, but is absolutely necessary apparently when I try to recreate it. And the problem with that is I don't know any formal education system that's going to have that. And most of those professors got the majority of their experience before this model existed. So they might have excellent information, but it wouldn't be this. So it couldn't be taught. And it'd be difficult to teach anyway. So there's a double negative. And that's part of why I am often asked to be a special lecturer at top universities, because I can at least say some of it.
mm.
But being there would absolutely replace anything I'm ever able to teach, because it fills in those pieces that I don't even know how to say.
Do you think you could describe the ways in which you have changed after experiencing that, if you can't explain the experience itself?
You have amazing leading questions, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Treating any of the work like an endurance sport really shocked me. I was very physically fit and mentally fit, but not in the right way. And I don't think it was hard to transition, but how necessary and helpful that was shocked me. So I'd say I've changed my habits around sustainability. I've doubled down on something that I always thought was important, and now I feel like justified that it's super important. And that's, this sounds maybe obvious, but really double down on it. Speed of innovation is the only thing that matters. And because of that, you really have to smile and be congenial constantly while you're working. Otherwise, people worry about, well, what else is going on? What are they worried about? Are they unhappy? Do they need help? Or are we stressed? So you emit this, you try to emit this calm, reassuring happiness and go, 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 go at this sustainable pace. And that has really reaffirmed my lack of tolerance for sit-down meetings. I like to do interviews like this, but I never had a sit-down meeting at Tesla ever. I never saw a presentation on anything ever. I never was asked to make a presentation on anything ever. And I ran the Agile program, right? Like you just solve problems. And the key wish is to whatever the current understood problem is, and you're always solving some problem or else you're not improving. Whatever it is, try to solve it in 20 minutes. Even if it's buy land to expand the factory, try to do that in 20 minutes. And that wish is so brutally fast. Whereas how that changed me is before I was building a tolerance for, well, we'll revisit this again next quarter. Or let's take that on as an annual goal. There's none of that. And there's also no arbitrary numbers. There's not, let's try to get to 50 of anything. It's simply, is the number going up? Or if it's a bad number, is it going down? And I'd believed that before, but now I recognize numeric forecasting as toxic. It creates stress, and it's very prevalent. Many people use it, and now I avoid it, and that helps me go to faster situations.
You've given some really incredible insight into this, and I'm sure it's gonna help a lot of people. So yeah, thank you very much for this interview, and it's been a blast to talk to you.
Stephanie, you're awesome. What are you going to do next? And you don't have to, I don't mean that like a challenge, but what do you think you'll do next?
I don't really know yet. I think I'm definitely in a discovery phase right now. So I'll leave it at that.
For sure. Not a Tesla thing, an @_orange book thing. So a Twitter account, and they're anonymous, at least as far as I know. So I don't know who they are or if they're a group or whatever, but they tweeted, if you haven't found the thing that makes you jump out of bed with passion each day, like, don't worry about it. Just keep looking. Your priority now is gathering information, trying things, because once you do, then you're set. Then you have laser focus. So keep trying things. And I will recommend to the whole internet and world, try a Musk company. We're at a pretty special time in the universe. So please let that be one of the things you try. And then whatever it is you try after that, you'll be so much better at executing it. Whatever it is. Or maybe you'll stay in the Musk companies because maybe that is your thing. Maybe you'll find it and you'll jump out of bed with enthusiasm every day. And so then you're set, right? But even if it's not, you'll have the ability to execute at a unique to the world right now level. So then when you find your thing, you can crush it.